The wind howled across the mountain peak as Daesung spread his massive wings. He was old, very old. 300 years had passed since he last saw another dragon. The sky was empty now, just clouds and stars. His scales, once bright blue like the summer sky, had turned dark like the ocean during a storm. He lived alone in a cave carved into the mountainside, and most days he didn't mind the silence. But some days, the loneliness hurt. Daesung remembered when the skies were full of dragons. They would fly together, hunt together, and share stories under the moonlight. Then the war came. Dragons fought against machines from distant worlds. Many died. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, hiding on different planets, never staying in one place too long. Daesung chose this frozen mountain because no one would look for him here. The cold kept visitors away. He flew down from his perch, gliding over valleys covered in snow. His sharp eyes searched for food. Winter was harsh this year, and even dragons needed to eat. He caught 2 large mountain goats and carried them back to his cave. As he approached his home, something caught his attention. There was a small shape near the entrance of his cave. Daesung landed carefully, snow crunching under his weight. He walked closer, curious and cautious. What he found made his ancient heart skip a beat. It was a dragonling barely hatched lying in the snow. The little creature's scales were pale green, almost white. His wings were folded tight against his tiny body. He was shaking from the cold. "Little one," Daesung whispered, his voice deep like thunder far away. The dragonling opened his eyes. They were golden, filled with fear and pain. He tried to move, but was too weak. Daesung looked around, searching for the dragonling's parents. There was no one. Only small tracks in the snow leading away from the mountain, already being covered by fresh snowfall. Someone had left this baby here to die. Rage burned in Daesung's chest. How could any dragon abandon their child? He knew the answer, though. He had heard the old stories. Some dragon clans still followed the ancient laws. They believed weak dragonlings brought shame to the family. If a hatchling was too small or couldn't breathe fire strong enough, they were left in the wilderness. It was cruel, but some dragons called it tradition. Daesung would call it murder. He bent down and carefully picked up the dragonling with his front claws. The little one was so light, like holding a bird. Daesung carried him into the cave where it was warm and dry. He had made a nest of soft moss and old cloth years ago, though he never used it. Now he placed the dragonling there gently. The cave was large, with high ceilings and walls covered in ancient drawings. Daesung had lived here for 70 years. He kept the place clean and organized. There was a fire pit in the center where flames danced, fed by his own breath. The warmth filled every corner. Daesung wrapped his tail around the dragonling, sharing his body heat. The little one stopped shaking after a while. His breathing became steady. Daesung watched him sleep, feeling something he hadn't felt in centuries. Purpose. "You need a name," Daesung said softly. He thought for a long time. Names were important to dragons. They carried meaning and power. Finally, he decided, "I will call you Hyunwoo. It means gentle warrior. You survived what others thought would kill you. That makes you strong." Hyunwoo slept through the night. Daesung didn't sleep at all. He kept watch, making sure the dragonling stayed warm. When morning came, Hyunwoo opened his eyes and looked at Daesung with wonder. "Where am I?" the little dragon asked. His voice was thin and high. "You are safe," Daesung replied. "You are home." Over the next 3 weeks, Daesung took care of Hyunwoo. He fed him small pieces of meat, chewed soft so the dragonling could swallow easily. He taught Hyunwoo how to strengthen his wings by flapping them while staying on the ground. He told him stories about the old days when dragons ruled the skies. Hyunwoo learned quickly. He was small, yes, but his mind was sharp. He asked many questions. Why was the sky blue? Where did stars come from? Why were they alone? Daesung answered each question with patience. He found himself smiling more than he had in years. The dragonling had scars on his wings, signs that his birth family had been rough with him. Daesung felt anger whenever he saw those scars, but he never showed it to Hyunwoo. Instead, he was gentle and kind. He wanted the little dragon to know that not all dragons were cruel. One evening, Daesung needed to hunt. Hyunwoo was still too young to fly, so Daesung left him in the cave with strict instructions to stay inside where it was safe. The dragonling promised he would behave. Daesung flew over the frozen forest searching for prey. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. He spotted a herd of deer near a frozen stream and dove down. He was about to catch one when something else caught his attention. Near a crashed metal pod, half buried in snow, was a small creature. It wasn't a dragon. It wasn't from this planet at all. Daesung landed near it carefully. The creature was a kitten, but not like any cat from this world. Her fur was silver and seemed to glow with soft blue and purple lights, like stars were trapped inside her. She had large eyes, too large for her small head, and they were the color of deep space. She was shivering, crying out in a language Daesung didn't understand. He looked at the crashed pod. It was an escape vessel, the kind used on large starships. Something had gone very wrong. The kitten must have been the only survivor. Daesung knew what he should do. He should leave her here. She was an alien, not his responsibility. He had Hyunwoo to care for now. Taking in another mouth to feed would be difficult, but the kitten looked at him with such hope in her strange eyes. Daesung sighed, a sound like wind through a canyon. "You are making me soft, little one," he said to himself. He picked up the kitten gently in his claws. She was even smaller than Hyunwoo had been. Her glowing fur was cold, almost frozen. He wrapped her against his warm chest and flew back to the cave, the deer forgotten. When he arrived home, Hyunwoo was waiting at the entrance, worried. His golden eyes went wide when he saw what Daesung carried. "What is that?" Hyunwoo asked, moving closer to sniff the strange creature. "I don't know exactly," Daesung admitted, "but she needs help just like you did." He brought the kitten inside and placed her near the fire. She was barely conscious. Daesung had no idea what alien kittens ate, but he warmed some water and helped her drink it. She swallowed weakly, then closed her eyes. "Will she die?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. "Not if I can help it," Daesung said firmly. He stayed up all night again, keeping both younglings warm and safe. The kitten's breathing was shallow but steady. Her glowing fur pulsed softly with each heartbeat. By morning she was still alive. Daesung decided that was a good sign. "She needs a name too," Hyunwoo said, watching the kitten with curiosity. Daesung thought carefully. "Mireille," he finally said. "It means future. She came from the stars, from somewhere far away. Perhaps she is a sign that our future will be different from our past." Hyunwoo nodded, seeming to understand even though he was very young. Daesung looked at his two small charges and felt something shift inside him. For 3 centuries he had been alone, convinced that his purpose was finished. He had been wrong. His purpose was just beginning. He was no longer just Daesung, the last dragon of the mountain. He was now a father, a protector, a family of 3 in a cave on a frozen peak, and somehow that felt exactly right. Mireille woke up 3 days after Daesung found her. Her large eyes opened slowly, looking around the cave with confusion and fear. She tried to stand, but her legs were too weak. She fell back down onto the soft moss and made a sound, something between a cry and a meow. The sound was strange, musical, like bells ringing. Daesung was outside the cave when he heard her. He rushed inside, his large body moving surprisingly fast. Hyunwoo was already there, staring at the kitten with wide golden eyes. "Stay back, Hyunwoo," Daesung said gently. "She is scared." The old dragon moved slowly toward Mireille. She watched him come closer, her fur glowing brighter with fear. When he was near enough, she hissed at him. It was a weak hiss, not threatening at all, but it showed she had spirit. "You are safe, little one," Daesung said in his softest voice. "No one will hurt you here." Mireille didn't understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. She stopped hissing but still watched him carefully. Daesung brought her some water and small pieces of cooked meat. She sniffed the food, then ate it slowly. She was very hungry. Hyunwoo watched from across the cave. He didn't understand what this strange glowing creature was. She wasn't a dragon. She didn't have scales or wings. She was soft and furry and made weird sounds. He didn't like her being here. This was his home, his father. He didn't want to share. For the first 3 days after Mireille woke up, the 2 younglings avoided each other. Hyunwoo would stay on one side of the cave, and Mireille on the other. When Daesung fed them, he had to give them food separately. If he put them too close, Hyunwoo would hiss and Mireille would arch her back, her fur glowing even brighter. Daesung was patient. He had lived for 300 years. He knew that trust took time. "You are both children," he told them one evening as they sat on opposite sides of the fire. You are both far from your birth families. You are both small and learning about the world. You have more in common than you think. Hyun-woo turned his head away, stubborn. Mireille just watched the fire, her eyes reflecting the dancing flames. The breakthrough came on a cold morning when disaster struck. Dae-sung had gone out to hunt, leaving both younglings in the cave with strict instructions to stay inside. The weather had been getting worse. Snow fell heavily and the wind screamed across the mountain. Dae-sung didn't like leaving them alone, but they needed food. He had been gone for less than an hour when he heard it. A deep rumbling sound, like thunder under the earth. His heart froze. He knew that sound. Avalanche. Dae-sung flew back to the mountain as fast as his wings could carry him. When he arrived, his worst fear was real. A massive wall of snow and ice had crashed down the mountainside, completely blocking the entrance to his cave. The opening was buried under tons of frozen debris. "Hyun-woo! Mi-rae!" he roared, his voice full of panic. He started digging with his powerful claws, throwing snow and ice aside. But the avalanche was huge. It would take him hours to dig through, maybe days, and his children were trapped inside with limited air. Inside the cave, Hyun-woo and Mi-rae were in complete darkness. The avalanche had blocked all light from the entrance. The temperature was already dropping. The fire in the pit was dying because there was no fresh air coming in. "This is your fault," Hyun-woo said to Mi-rae in the darkness. His voice was scared and angry. "Everything was fine before you came." Mi-rae didn't understand his words, but she understood his anger. She made a sad sound and curled into a small ball, her glowing fur providing the only light. Minutes passed. The cave got colder. The fire went out completely. Hyun-woo realized that being angry wouldn't help them. They needed to do something, or they would both die here. He moved closer to Mi-rae. She watched him approach but didn't run away. Hyun-woo looked at the blocked entrance. It was covered in snow and rocks too heavy for him to move. "Can you help?" he asked, not really expecting her to understand. But Mi-rae stood up. She walked toward the blocked entrance, her glowing fur lighting the way. She stared at it for a long moment. Then something amazing happened. Her body started to change. It became less solid, more like light or smoke. She walked forward and passed right through the wall of snow and ice like it wasn't there. Hyun-woo watched with his mouth open in shock. Mi-rae disappeared into the barrier. For a few terrifying seconds, Hyun-woo was alone in the dark. Then she came back through looking tired. She sat down and made a sound, like she was trying to tell him something. Hyun-woo understood. She could pass through solid things. She could scout a path out. But she was showing him that she couldn't do it alone. She was too small, too weak to clear the way by herself. An idea formed in Hyun-woo's young mind. He had been practicing his fire breathing with Dae-sung. He wasn't very good at it yet. His flames were small and weak, but fire could melt ice and snow. He walked to the blocked entrance and took a deep breath. He focused hard, remembering everything Dae-sung had taught him. He breathed out a stream of fire. It was small, just a thin line of flame, but it was fire. The snow began to melt where he aimed. Mi-rae watched him work. She seemed to understand what he was trying to do. She phased through the barrier again, and when she came back, she used her small paws to show him where to aim his fire. She had found the weakest spots, the places where the snow wasn't packed so tight. They worked together. Hyun-woo would breathe fire where Mi-rae showed him. She would phase through to check their progress. Slowly, very slowly, they created a small tunnel through the avalanche debris. Outside, Dae-sung was still digging frantically. His claws were bleeding from scraping against ice and rock. He was calling their names over and over, his voice breaking with fear. Then he saw it. A tiny hole appeared in the wall of snow. Through it came a small stream of fire. Hyun-woo's fire. "Yes, keep going," Dae-sung shouted, digging harder toward the hole. The tunnel grew larger. Soon it was big enough for small bodies to fit through. Mi-rae came out first, squeezing through the narrow space. Then came Hyun-woo, covered in soot and exhausted. Dae-sung pulled them both to him, wrapping his wings around them. He was shaking, something Hyunwoo had never seen before. The big, strong dragon was scared. He had almost lost them. "You worked together," Daesung said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved each other." Hyunwoo looked at Mireille. She looked back at him. Something passed between them in that moment. An understanding. They were different, yes, but they were also the same. They were both small, both lost, both found by Daesung. Both part of this strange family. From that day forward, everything changed. Hyunwoo stopped ignoring Mireille. Instead, he became curious about her. He learned that she was very smart, even if she couldn't speak dragon language. She understood more than she could say. Mireille, in turn, stopped being afraid of Hyunwoo. She would sleep next to him, her glowing fur keeping them both warm. Daesung taught them everything he knew. He taught Hyunwoo how to fly properly, how to breathe fire with control, how to fight if he needed to protect himself. The little dragon learned quickly. His small size, which his birth family had seen as weakness, actually made him faster and more agile than bigger dragons. Mireille learned too, even though she wasn't a dragon. Daesung discovered that she was incredibly smart. She watched everything carefully and remembered it all. Her ability to phase through solid objects was just one of her gifts. She could also sense danger before it arrived, and her eyes could see things in the dark that even dragons couldn't see. Daesung realized she was from a species called Talon, an alien race known for their mental abilities. He had met one once, many years ago, before the war. They were peaceful creatures, but very rare. The old dragon taught both younglings about honor and kindness. He taught them that strength wasn't just about power. Real strength was about protecting others, about being gentle with those who were weak, about standing up for what was right even when it was hard. "The universe is full of cruelty," he told them one night as they sat under the stars. "Dragons abandoned Hyunwoo because he was small. Someone lost Mireille or maybe left her behind when her ship crashed. But cruelty doesn't have to win. We can choose to be different. We can choose to care for each other." Hyunwoo and Mireille listened carefully. They were young, but they understood. Months turned into years. The cave that had been so quiet and lonely became filled with life. There was laughter now, and playing, and sometimes arguments like all siblings have. Hyunwoo would chase Mireille around the cave, and she would phase through walls to escape him, making him frustrated and her amused. Daesung would watch them play and feel something he thought he'd lost forever: happiness, joy, family. He was no longer alone. The mountain was no longer quiet, and three very different creatures had become the most unlikely family in all the galaxy. 15 years passed like a gentle dream. Hyunwoo grew into a young dragon, though he remained smaller than most of his kind. His scales had darkened to a deep emerald green, and his golden eyes held wisdom beyond his years. He could fly faster than Daesung now, his small size making him incredibly agile. His fire burned hot and precise, never wasting energy. Mireille had grown too. She was no longer a tiny kitten, but a graceful creature about the size of a large house cat. Her silver fur still glowed with colors like the night sky, shifting between blue and purple and sometimes pink when she was happy. She had learned to understand dragon language perfectly, though she still couldn't speak it. Instead, she had developed a way to project simple thoughts into their minds. Not words exactly, but feelings and images that communicated clearly. Life on the mountain had been peaceful. Daesung taught them everything he knew. They hunted together, flew together, and spent evenings telling stories by the fire. The old dragon's heart, which had been cold and empty for so long, was now full of warmth. But peace never lasts forever. It was a clear morning when the sky changed. Daesung was teaching Hyunwoo a difficult flying technique, one that required sharp turns at high speed. Mireille sat on a rock nearby, watching with interest. Suddenly she stood up, her fur glowing bright red. "That meant danger. What is it?" Daesung asked, landing beside her. Mireille looked up at the sky. She projected an image into his mind. Large metal objects coming from above, many of them. Hyunwoo landed next to them, following their gaze upward. At first he saw nothing. Then slowly ships began to appear. They were huge, made of silver metal that reflected the sunlight. There were at least 20 of them descending from the clouds in perfect formation. "Stay behind me," Daesung commanded, his voice hard. His protective instincts took over immediately. He spread his massive wings, making himself look bigger, putting his body between the ships and his children. The ships landed in a circle around their mountain peak. They were military vessels, heavily armed, but showing no signs of immediate attack. Doors opened on the largest ship, and a ramp extended down to the snowy ground. Figures emerged. The first was a tall man wearing armor that looked like it was made from both metal and dragon scales. His face was sharp and serious, with eyes that had seen many battles. Daesung recognized him immediately as a hybrid, someone with both human and dragon blood. Such creatures were rare and usually very powerful. Behind him came a smaller figure, walking with incredible grace. She was a Talon like Mireille, but fully grown. Her fur was pure white, and she wore elegant robes that marked her as someone important. Her large eyes swept across the mountain until they landed on Mireille. Those eyes went wide with shock. More soldiers came out, at least 50 of them, all armed but not attacking. They formed a perimeter, professional and efficient. These were warriors who knew what they were doing. The hybrid man stepped forward, raising one hand in a peaceful gesture. "Great Daesung," he called out in dragon language. "Forgive this intrusion. We mean no harm. I am Ji-hoon, commander of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. We need to speak with you." Daesung didn't lower his defensive stance. "You bring an army to my home and speak of peace? Leave before I make you leave." His voice was dangerous, full of the power that had once made enemies flee in terror. But Ji-hoon didn't flinch. He had courage. Daesung would give him that. "We know you want to be left alone," Ji-hoon said calmly. "We have respected that wish for decades. But things have changed. The galaxy is in danger and we need help. Your help." "I don't help anyone anymore," Daesung growled. "I stopped fighting that war long ago." The white Talon stepped forward, her eyes never leaving Mireille. "Please," she said, her voice musical and gentle. "Just listen to what we have to say. Then if you want us to leave, we will go. I am Sumin, diplomat of the Talon Imperium." Daesung looked at Hyunwoo and Mireille. The young dragon looked ready to fight if needed. Mireille was staring at Sumin with confusion and curiosity. "Fine," Daesung said finally. "You have 5 minutes. Speak." Ji-hoon nodded respectfully. He touched a device on his wrist and a hologram appeared in the air above his hand. It showed a map of the galaxy. Daesung recognized several systems, places he had visited long ago. 3 months ago, something new appeared at the edge of known space. Ji-hoon began. "We call them the Void Swarm. They are machines, but unlike any we've seen before. They don't negotiate. They don't stop. They consume everything in their path, destroying planets, killing entire populations." The hologram changed, showing images of destroyed worlds. Cities turned to ash, forests burned to nothing. Oceans dried up. It was terrible to see. "They're moving through the outer systems," Ji-hoon continued. "We've tried to stop them. We've lost 40 ships and thousands of soldiers. Nothing works. They adapt to every weapon we use. They learn from every battle." Hyunwoo moved closer to see the hologram better. His golden eyes reflected the images of destruction. "How many worlds have they destroyed?" he asked quietly. 17, Ji-hoon answered, his voice heavy with grief. "Billions of lives lost." Sumin spoke next, her eyes still on Mireille. "We need warriors. We need defenders. We need anyone who can help us stop this threat before it reaches the core systems." "And you come to me," Daesung said bitterly. "You want the old dragon to fight one more war?" The answer is no. I have fought enough wars. I have lost enough friends. I am done. "We understand," Ji-hoon said. "And we wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. You are Daesung the Ancient, the drake who held the Serpent's Gate alone against 1,000 ships. You are a legend. If you joined us, it would give hope to—" I said no. Daesung's roar shook the mountain. Snow fell from nearby peaks. His eyes blazed with anger and old pain. "My legend is built on corpses of friends and enemies. I will not add more. Leave my mountain, now." But Sumin wasn't looking at Daesung anymore. She was walking slowly toward Mireille, her eyes filled with tears. "It can't be," she whispered. "After all these years." Mireille watched her approach, uncertain. She pressed against Hyunwoo's side, seeking comfort from her brother. "That kitten," Sumin said, her voice shaking. "She wears the mark of the royal family. Look at her left ear. That pattern of stars. There's only one bloodline that carries that mark." Everyone looked at Mireille's left ear. Indeed, there was a specific pattern in her glowing fur. stars arranged in a constellation that looked like a crown. "She is Crown Princess Mirai of the Talon Imperium," Suman said, tears rolling down her face. "She was lost 12 years ago when her family's ship was attacked. We searched everywhere. We thought she was dead." The words hung in the air like thunder. Hyunwoo looked at Mirai with shock. His sister, his playmate, his best friend was a princess? Mirai looked just as shocked, projecting confusion and disbelief into all their minds. Daesung's eyes narrowed. "She was in an escape pod. It crashed near here. I found her almost dead and brought her home. The attack happened in the system next to this one," Sumin explained, wiping her tears. "The escape pod must have drifted for days before crashing here. She was only 3 years old. Too young to remember." Mirai sat down overwhelmed. Her whole life she thought she was just an orphan, a stray that Daesung had saved. Now she learned she had a family, a real family, that she was royalty. "Her people need her," Sumin said gently. "The Talon Imperium has been in mourning for 12 years. If they knew she was alive, she doesn't remember them." Daesung interrupted. "She doesn't know their world. This is her home. These are her people." He gestured to himself and Hyunwoo. Mirai looked at them both, then at Sumin. Her emotions were a storm too complex to project clearly. Jihoon stepped forward again. "We're not here to take anyone away. We're here to ask for help. The Void Swarm will reach populated systems within 3 months. Billions will die. We need fighters, tacticians, anyone who can make a difference." "I already told you," Daesung began, but Hyunwoo interrupted him. "I'll go." Everyone turned to look at the young dragon. He stood tall, his emerald scales catching the light. His golden eyes were determined. "What?" Daesung asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I'll go," Hyunwoo repeated. "You taught me to protect those who can't protect themselves. You taught me that strength means standing up for what's right. How can I hide here while billions die? I won't." "You're just a child," Daesung said desperately. "I'm 15. That's adult by dragon law. You taught me everything you know. Let me use it." Mirai made a sound, drawing everyone's attention. She projected an image into their minds. Herself standing next to Hyunwoo, both of them facing the stars. Her meaning was clear. "Where he goes, she goes, no," Daesung said firmly. "Absolutely not. I won't lose you both. I won't." He stopped, his voice breaking. For 300 years he had been alone. Then he found these two and they became his whole world. The thought of losing them was worse than any physical pain. Hyunwoo walked to Daesung and pressed his forehead against the old dragon's chest. "You saved me when I was left to die. You taught me that life is precious. Now I need to save other lives. Please understand, Father." It was the first time Hyunwoo had called him father. Daesung closed his eyes, tears sliding down his scaled face. Mirai came to them both, pressing against Daesung's leg. She projected love, gratitude, determination. She projected an image of them returning home. The ship that took Hyunwoo and Mirai away from the mountain was called the Starbreaker. It was massive, bigger than Daesung's entire mountain peak. Inside, hundreds of soldiers moved with purpose, preparing for war. Hyunwoo and Mirai felt very small among all these warriors. Daesung had stood at the mountain peak watching the ships leave. He didn't move for 3 days after they were gone. He just stared at the sky, his ancient heart heavy with worry and pride. On the Starbreaker, Jihoon assigned Hyunwoo and Mirai to Squadron 7. The squadron leader was Captain Tae Yang, a battle-scarred veteran who had fought in more wars than he could count. He was a large man with kind eyes but a stern face. When he saw his new squad members, he frowned. "A small dragon and a house cat?" he said to Jihoon. "Commander, with respect, this is a combat unit. We face the deadliest threat the galaxy has ever seen. I need warriors, not children." "They volunteered," Jihoon replied calmly. "And they were trained by Daesung the Ancient himself. Give them a chance, Tae-yang." Tae-yang looked at Hyunwoo and Mirai skeptically. "Can you fight?" he asked them directly. "Yes, sir," Hyunwoo answered, his voice steady despite his nervousness. Mirai projected confidence into the captain's mind, making him blink in surprise. "Not many creatures could do that, we'll see," Tae-yang said finally. "Squadron 7, meet your new members. This is Hyunwoo and Mirai. Make them feel welcome." The other members of Squadron 7 were a mix of different species. There was Bora, a human woman who piloted the fastest fighter ship in the fleet. There was Hwan, a large rock-like being whose people were nearly impossible to kill. There was Young Sik, a techno-mage who could hack any computer system. And there were 6 others, all experienced, all deadly. They looked at Hyunwoo and Mirai with doubt. A young dragon who was too small. An alien kitten who glowed in the dark. How could these two help against the Void Swarm? The first week was hard. Hyunwoo and Mirai trained with Squadron 7, learning military tactics and battle formations. They practiced on simulation decks, fighting against computer-generated enemies. Hyunwoo struggled at first. He was used to fighting alone or with just Mirai. Working with a team was different. Mirai had her own challenges. She couldn't speak, which made communication difficult during fast-paced battles. She had to learn to project her thoughts quickly and clearly to everyone at once. The other squadron members weren't mean to them, but they weren't exactly friendly either. They were professional, treating Hyunwoo and Mirai like any other rookies. But in quiet moments, Hyunwoo could hear them talking. The dragon is too small. He'll get killed in his first real fight. That cat, what can she even do? Phase through walls? How does that help us? Commander must be desperate sending us kids to babysit. Hyunwoo tried not to let the words hurt. He remembered what Dae-sung always said. Let your actions speak louder than words. Prove yourself through deeds, not arguments. The chance to prove himself came sooner than anyone expected. 3 weeks after joining Squadron 7, alarms blared throughout the Starbreaker. The Void Swarm had been detected near Titan's Edge, a mining colony with over 4,000 people. The colony's defenses were weak. They needed immediate help. All squadrons prepare for combat. The announcement boomed through the ship. Squadron 7 rushed to their stations. Bora and the others jumped into their fighter ships. Hyunwoo didn't need a ship. He was a dragon. He could fly in space, holding his breath for hours and using magic to protect himself from the cold and radiation. Mirai rode on his back, secured with special straps that let her phase through them if needed. Captain Taeyang saw them preparing and pulled Hyunwoo aside. Listen to me carefully, he said, his voice urgent. This is not training. This is real. The Void Swarm doesn't hesitate. They don't feel fear or mercy. If you're not ready for this, stay on the ship. No one will judge you. Hyunwoo looked the captain in the eyes. My father taught me that running away is sometimes smart, but running away when people need help is always wrong. We're ready. Mirai projected agreement, her fur glowing with determination. Taeyang studied them for a moment, then nodded. Stay close to Bora, follow her lead. And for the love of the stars, don't die. They launched into space. Hyunwoo had flown through the sky many times, but space was different. It was cold, dark, and endless. Stars surrounded them like tiny diamonds. In the distance, he could see Titan's Edge, a cluster of buildings and domes built into a large asteroid. He could also see the Void Swarm. They looked like insects, but they were made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, swarming around the colony like hungry locusts. Their weapons fired red beams that cut through metal and stone like paper. Squadron 7, engage. Taeyang's voice crackled over the communication system. The fighter ships dove into battle, weapons blazing. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and followed. This was it. His first real fight. A Void Swarm machine turned toward him, its sensors locking onto his heat signature. It fired. Red beams cut through space. Hyunwoo twisted in the air, using his small size and agility to dodge. The beams missed him by inches. He flew at the machine, building speed. At the last second, he breathed fire. His flames, concentrated and hot, melted through the machine's armor. It exploded in a flash of light. One down, Hyunwoo whispered to himself. But there were so many more. Mirai tapped his shoulder, projecting an urgent warning. More machines were coming from behind. Hyunwoo spun, but he wasn't fast enough. The machines fired. Then something amazing happened. Mirai leaped from his back, her body phasing into her ghost-like form. She flew right into one of the machines, passing through its hull. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the machine's lights flickered and died. It drifted away, disabled. Mirai phased back out and landed on Hyunwoo's back again. She projected an image into his mind. She could phase inside the machines and destroy their core systems from within. You're brilliant, Hyunwoo told her. They worked together, moving through the battle like a dance. Hyunwoo would fly close to the machines, dodging their attacks with impossible speed. Mirai would phase inside them, sabotaging their systems. One by one, the machines fell. The other squadron members noticed. Bora, fighting in her ship nearby, watched in amazement as the small dragon and the glowing cat took down enemies with perfect coordination. Captain, are you seeing this? She said over the comm. I see it, Taeyang replied. His voice held a new tone. Respect. But the battle was far from over. A massive machine 10 times larger than the others emerged from behind the asteroid. It was a command ship directing the smaller machines. Its weapons were bigger, deadlier. One shot from it destroyed a fighter ship, killing the pilot instantly. All units focus on that command ship, Tae-yang ordered. The squadron attacked together, but the command ship's shields were too strong. Their weapons barely scratched it. Worse, it was moving toward the colony. If it got close enough, its weapons would kill everyone inside. Hyunwoo looked at Mireille. She looked back at him. They didn't need words or projected thoughts. They both knew what to do. "We have to get inside it," Hyunwoo said. Mireille nodded, her fur glowing bright with determination. "Negative," Tae-yang shouted over the comm. He had heard Hyunwoo's plan. "That ship is too dangerous. You'll be killed." "Not if we're fast enough," Hyunwoo replied. "Trust us, Captain." Before Tae-yang could argue, Hyunwoo dove toward the command ship. He flew faster than he ever had before, pushing his body to its limits. Void swarm machines tried to intercept him, but his small size and speed made him impossible to catch. He reached the command ship's hull. It was smooth metal, no obvious entrances, but that didn't matter. Mireille jumped from his back and phased through the hull, disappearing inside. Now came the hard part. Hyunwoo had to keep the command ship distracted while Mireille worked. He flew around it, breathing fire at its weapons, making himself a target. The massive ship turned its guns on him. Red beams filled space, trying to blast him out of the sky. Hyunwoo dodged and weaved, his heart pounding. Every muscle in his body screamed with effort. He couldn't keep this up forever. Inside the command ship, Mireille ran through corridors filled with machines. She was scared but focused. She found the core, a massive computer brain that controlled everything. She couldn't destroy it by herself, but she didn't need to. She just needed to confuse it. She phased into the core itself, her body becoming one with the circuits. Then she projected thoughts, thousands of random images and feelings flooding the system with noise. The command ship's computer brain couldn't process it all. It started making mistakes, giving wrong orders. Outside, the command ship suddenly stopped shooting at Hyunwoo. Its weapons turned instead on its own smaller machines, destroying them. The smaller machines, receiving conflicting orders, started attacking each other. "What's happening?" Bora asked, confused but hopeful. "They're fighting each other," Young-sik reported, his voice excited. Tae-yang understood immediately. "The kid did it. They're hacking the command ship from inside." Mireille phased back out through the hull, exhausted. Hyunwoo caught her on his back and flew away as fast as he could. Behind them, the command ship's core overloaded. It exploded. 3 years. That was how long the war lasted. 3 years of battles, 3 years of danger, 3 years away from home. Hyunwoo grew during that time. His body became larger and stronger. His emerald scales hardened like armor. His fire burned hotter and more controlled. But he never grew as large as other dragons his age. He remained compact, built for speed and agility rather than raw power. He learned to use that to his advantage. Mireille changed too. She was no longer the size of a house cat. She had grown to be about as long as a full-grown panther, sleek and powerful. Her glowing fur had become more vibrant, shifting through colors based on her emotions. She had mastered her phasing ability, able to turn solid or ghost-like in an instant. Her mental abilities had grown stronger. She could now project complex thoughts to dozens of people at once, making her an invaluable tactical coordinator. Squadron 7 fought in 17 major battles during those 3 years. They faced the Void Swarm at the Red Nebula, where they lost good soldiers but held the line. They defended the farming worlds of the Greenbelt, saving millions of civilians. They attacked swarm factory stations, destroying them before they could build more machines. In every battle, Hyunwoo and Mireille fought at the front. They became known across the fleet as the Shadow Pair. Hyunwoo would dive through enemy formations, his small size making him nearly impossible to hit, his fire melting through armor. Mireille would phase into enemy ships, sabotaging them from within, her mental abilities confusing and misdirecting enemy systems. Captain Tae-yang, who had doubted them at first, now trusted them completely. He often put them in charge of special missions, the dangerous ones that required skill and courage. They never let him down. Other species heard about them. Young warriors from across the galaxy wanted to meet the dragon who was deemed too weak, but became a hero. They wanted to see the alien princess who chose battle over a throne. Hyunwoo and Mireille became symbols of hope. proof that anyone could make a difference regardless of where they came from. But success came with a price. They saw friends die. They saw worlds burn despite their best efforts. They learned that war was not glorious or clean. It was messy and painful and left scars that would never fully heal. Through it all, they thought of Dae-sung. On quiet nights between battles, they would look out at the stars and wonder if he was looking at the same stars from his mountain. They missed him terribly. They missed home. Dae-sung, alone on his mountain, thought of them every day. He monitored news broadcasts, listening for any mention of Squadron 7. When he heard of their victories, his heart swelled with pride. When he heard of their close calls, his heart clenched with fear. He was 300 years old, but those 3 years of waiting were the longest of his life. The turning point came at the Battle of Void's Gate, a massive confrontation at the edge of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had gathered every available ship, every soldier, every weapon they had. This would be the final stand. If they lost here, the Void Swarm would sweep into the core systems and billions would die. The battle lasted for 3 days. Thousands of ships clashed in the darkness of space. Hyunwoo flew until his wings felt like they would fall off. Mirai phased in and out of reality so many times she could barely remember what being solid felt like. On the 3rd day, Hyunwoo led a desperate attack on the swarm's central command structure. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. But someone had to do it, and Hyunwoo volunteered. 50 ships went with him. Only 12 came back. But they succeeded. The central command was destroyed. Without it, the Void Swarm lost coordination. They became just machines, dangerous but no longer unstoppable. The combined forces of the Galactic Council pushed them back. For the first time in 3 years, the swarm retreated. They fled beyond the galaxy's edge, back into the void they came from. The war was over. They had won. When the victory was announced, the entire fleet celebrated. Soldiers who had fought for 3 years without rest finally allowed themselves to feel relief. Some cried, some laughed. Some just sat in silence, too exhausted to do anything else. Ji-hoon found Hyunwoo and Mirai in the Starbreaker's observation deck. They were looking out at the stars, both of them quiet. The commander sat down beside them, his armor scarred from countless battles. "You two have saved more lives than we can count," he said softly. "The council wants to honor you. They want to give you medals, titles, command positions. You can write your own future now." Hyunwoo looked at Mirai. She looked back at him. They had a silent conversation, the kind only siblings who have been through everything together can have. "We want to go home," Hyunwoo said simply. Ji-hoon smiled. He had expected that answer. "I'll arrange transport immediately." Sumin, the Talon diplomat, appeared at the door. She had stayed with the fleet throughout the war, coordinating relief efforts. She had spent time with Mirai, teaching her about Talon culture and history. She walked over slowly, her white fur dim with sadness. "Mirai," she said gently, "your people want you to come home. They want their princess back. They want to crown you as Empress of the Talon Imperium." Mirai projected a feeling into Sumin's mind. It was gratitude mixed with regret. She was thankful for everything Sumin had taught her about her birth people, but her heart belonged to a mountain and a dragon who had raised her. "She's choosing them over us?" Sumin asked, tears forming in her eyes. "She's choosing her family," Hyunwoo said firmly. "And you should be happy for her, not sad. She's choosing love over duty." "Isn't that brave?" Sumin wiped her tears and smiled. Yes, it is. You will always have a home with the Talon people, Mirai. Remember that." Mirai projected love and thanks, then turned back to the stars. 3 days later, a ship dropped Hyunwoo and Mirai at the base of their mountain. The pilot offered to take them to the top, but they refused. They wanted to fly up themselves the way they used to. As the ship departed, Hyunwoo spread his wings. They were larger now, stronger, covered in scars from battles. Mirai jumped onto his back, her familiar weight settling into place. Together they flew up the mountain, circling higher and higher. Dae-sung was standing at the cave entrance when he saw them. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. But no, they were real. His children were coming home. He didn't move. He couldn't. His legs felt weak, his ancient heart pounding so hard he thought it might break. Hyunwoo landed in front of him, and Mirai leaped down from his back. For a long moment nobody spoke. They just looked at each other, taking in the changes 3 years had brought. Then Dae-sung roared, a sound of pure joy that shook the mountain, and sent avalanches tumbling down distant slopes. He pulled them both into his wings, holding them close. He was crying, tears streaming down his scaled face. "You came back," he kept saying, his voice breaking. "You came back. We promised we would," Hyunwoo said, his own eyes wet with tears. Mireille projected feelings of love and home and safety, all the emotions she couldn't put into words. That evening, they sat around the fire in their cave just like old times. Hyunwoo and Mireille told stories of their adventures, though they left out the scariest parts. They didn't want to worry Daesung more than they already had. Daesung listened, his eyes never leaving them. He wanted to memorize every detail, afraid that if he looked away they might disappear again. "I'm so proud of you," he said when they finished. "You saved billions of lives. You became heroes, but more importantly, you stayed true to what I taught you. You protected the innocent. You showed courage and honor. That matters more than any medal or title." "We learned from the best," Hyunwoo said, pressing his forehead against Daesung's chest like he used to do when he was small. The next morning, Daesung woke to sounds outside the cave. He walked to the entrance and stopped, stunned by what he saw. There were children at the base of the mountain, dozens of them. They were different species, different sizes, different colors. Some had wings, some had fur, some were scaled. They were all looking up at the cave with hope in their eyes. Jihoon stood among them, smiling. He had flown here personally. "These are refugees," he explained. "Orphans from the war. They have nowhere to go." When they heard that Hyunwoo and Mireille were coming back here, they asked if they could come too. "They want to learn from the family that produces heroes." Daesung looked at the children, then back at Hyunwoo and Mireille. They were both smiling, already walking down to meet the younglings. "A sanctuary," Daesung murmured, understanding dawning. "You want to turn my mountain into a sanctuary?" "Our mountain," Hyunwoo corrected. "And yes, you taught us. We can teach them. We can give them what you gave us. A home, a family, a chance." Mireille projected agreement, her fur glowing warm colors. Daesung looked at all those hopeful faces, those children who had lost everything, just like Hyunwoo and Mireille once had. He thought about how empty his life had been before he found them. He thought about how full it was now. "Very well," he said, his voice gentle. "Welcome, all of you. This mountain is now your home, but be warned, the training will be hard. I am old and set in my ways. I will push you to be better than you think you can be." The children cheered. They rushed up the mountain, excited and nervous. Over the following months, the mountain transformed. More caves were carved out. Training grounds were built.